Another day on the markets, approach with no fear. The stage is set, all engines go. Welcome to the angle. Let's start the show. Hold on tight, the stage is set. Dig in deep with no regrets. Red and green bars leading the way. Welcome to the angle. No time to delay. Markets rise and markets fall. Atomcash is ready to answer the call. While the bulls charge hard and the bears dig deep, the angle will keep you on your feet. Hold on tight, the stage is set. Dig in deep with no regrets. Red and green bars leading the way. Welcome to the angle, no time to delay. Cashing in on the highs and lows where the wind of fortune constantly blows. No looking back, keep your eyes on the prize. Fuel to run with a fire that never dies. Hold on tight, the stage is set. Dig in deep with no regrets. Red and green bars leading the way. Welcome to the angle, no time to delay.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the most entertaining, intellectually stimulating financial podcast in the entire world. You're watching the Atomcash Angle, the show that flips the switch and floods the system with straight financial voltage. I'm Adam Cash, and I'm bringing you the firepower your financial life may have been missing. Now, whether you're new to trading or a trading savant, I aim to turn complexity into clarity with a shot of adrenaline. And today we have a very interesting day and a very interesting week as well. It's another beautiful week in the stock market with the SPY opening up near all-time highs once again. We got a lot going on this week, a lot to talk about, so we're going to get into as much as we can right here in the first 10 minutes. For those of you wondering, I'm a little lower energy. Like I said on last Thursday, I was a little sick. I got beat up on the weekend with some illness. I feel better. I'm at like 85, 90% now, so I'm going to try to keep things up, keep the energy up, keep you all entertained, because I'm not here to complain. I'm here to entertain and provide information to all of you to have the best trading day you can possibly have. Good morning, Hatchet. Thanks for the morning in the chat. And Toby beat Eddie to the punch. I don't know if Eddie's here, but Toby dropping the "you're" in the chat. Good morning, gentlemen. All right, looking at the market, we're going to do a quick little glancery look at any potential catalyst for the week like I love to do on a Monday morning. So today, we don't really have much going on. It's a very quiet day today in terms of any potential news catalyst. But as we head forward into the rest of the week, we have a lot more going on. Tomorrow, which again, I will be live tomorrow at 9:15. So if you're watching right now, I'll remind you later, but I'll be live tomorrow as well. We have a slew of Fed speakers right around the open after like 10 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4 Fed speakers scheduled to all speak around that same time. You also have consumer credit, and then another Fed speaker at 3 o'clock tomorrow near the close. So you want to be mindful of that. Heading into Wednesday, you have 2 Fed speakers before the bell and FOMC meeting minutes. Now, personally, I don't put a lot of emphasis on the minutes from the FOMC meetings, but you still want to at least be aware in case something is said there in terms of like what actually happened during the meeting that may not have been readily apparent to the market. So that's something you want to be aware of. And then you do have three Fed speakers after the FOMC meeting, but one is only going to be during the market, two are after the bell. So not much concern there if you are a day trader. But potential a little bit of volatility. Also the 10-year note on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Just keep an eye on that. Heading forward to Thursday. Big day on Thursday. You have Powell speaking before the market opens, but it's in a pre-recorded speech. Not that really changes anything, but still speaking before the market opens. And you have the Fed Community Banking Conference all day. So that is going to be very apparent. You're going to want to keep an eye on that. I personally use, again, I'm not sponsored or anything, but I use Financial Juice as a news aggregate. You want to use any sort of news aggregate just in case there's some news, especially when there's like an all-day event. You want to be very aware of what's going on there in case there is something that you need to be made aware of. You also have wholesale inventories on Thursday. The 30-year note, the 30-year bond on Thursday. You're definitely going to want to pay attention to that. And then 4 more Fed speakers speaking again, blabbering all week on Thursday, wrapping up the week, going forward to Friday. And we're ending the week just as we started it, a little quieter. You do have Michigan sentiment, which you guys know I love to trade if the opportunity presents itself, and two Fed speakers only on Friday. So a lot of Fed chatter this week. You're definitely going to want to keep, like I said, some sort of news aggregate, especially if you're a day trader, readily apparent just so you're aware if any news comes out that could affect any potential positions you're in. Like I said, today and Friday are probably going to be pretty slow in terms of any potential news catalyst. The meat of the week, the middle of the week, your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is where we're going to see a lot of potential volatility in the overall market. So you definitely want to at least be aware of that as you head into the week. Eddie, dropping the "you're" in the chat. Good morning, my friend. Toby beat you to the punch, but that's okay. We still love all the "you's" around here. All right, right now, taking a look at the SPY in the pre-market, currently sitting at 671.39, a little bit shy of the all-time high of 672.68. Interesting daily candles we saw in the last 2 days here on the SPY. I'm going to hide my drawings here just for a second so you guys can see a little closer. We'll zoom in a bit. To me, this indicates a decent amount of indecision towards the end of the week, because this candle here on the Thursday says that we pushed higher, we came lower, but we both pushed up at the end of the day, still closed above the prior day's close, which is typically seen as bullish, so it's not a bad candle. But then the next day, so that Friday, the end of the week close, pushed higher and closed lower than the prior day, which gives you that little bit of an indecision there. And to be very clear, we closed lower by 1 penny. So Friday's candle closed lower by 1 penny from Thursday's close. But still, that's a very interesting level. You're going to want to keep an eye on around the 669.20 area, as this is basically, if you push these two candles together, you kind of have like a doji candle, right? You have a wick at the top, a wick at the bottom, and the body in the center, a small body in the center, showing some sort of price disagreement, some sort of level of consolidation, or not really showing very much fervorance in a continuation of a trend. Again, if we're looking at things in a microcosm, just these two candles, that doji kind of candle, which again, if we're squishing these two candles together, you kind of get that kind of price action, is very indicative of indecision in the market. So you want to be very aware of that. Hatchet saying all sectors green, XOK up 1.25%. Yeah, we're going to go through the sectors in a little bit here. And you'll notice right now, even if we're just looking at this, which is very interesting to see in the pre-market here, you're noticing SPY is only up 0.31%, and conversely, the Qs are up almost double that, and so is IWM, which is very interesting to see that basically, because these are the three sectors you guys know I track, that the growth sector, so to speak, your Qs, your tech, the next bastion of the great stock market, bull market, AI, right? Your Qs, is up almost double to the SPY. And then also with IWM, also up basically double from the SPY. And again, daily candles are different, but still showing some strength here in the pre-market, which is interesting because IWM is really like our sentiment driver. Kind of gives us an idea of how a large swath of smaller to mid-cap size companies are really performing today. So it is interesting that the SPY is not in the same level of performance. Now that can change, obviously, but at least in the pre-market, it's interesting to see that kind of disagreement, especially with both of these, both leaning green. Now, to be clear, everything's leaning green, which is what we want to see with red volatility. That means, clear bull day, at least shaping up to be a clean bull day. That could change at the open, but at least as we're sitting right now, we're shaping up to have a very clean bull day, just kind of marching up to the upside, again, as long as things hold the way they are. Now, the one thing I want to bring to your guys' attention right now is that NVIDIA is actually down in the pre-market, which is kind of interesting, taking into account everything I just said. So you had a little bit of a sell-off here in the pre-market, kind of just fluffing around, farting around this 185 area. And if we look over to our other Mag 7 names right now, Microsoft also moved up in the pre-market, coming down a little bit. Now again, a little bit of a pump here right before open. Apple, very similar price action. Amazon, similar price action. So we're seeing a lot of weakness in the Mag 7. And when I say weakness, please take that with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to freak anyone out here, but I just mean in terms of trend in the pre-market, we're not seeing, all of them are trending lower at this point in time, at least from their pre-market high. So please at least take that with a grain of salt, what I'm saying here. Meta completely just melting down here. Meta's the big one to watch if you're a bear, because this is the one that is kind of hinting at this is your first Mag 7 really to crack to the downside and have a pretty confirmed bear move here. And you guys know, if you've been watching the program, I've been pretty bearish on Meta, and I will consistently remain bearish on Meta. But right now, you're looking to open around the gap here at that 730 ER gap that we have here. So doesn't necessarily mean you want to short this out the gate, but it is something to pay attention to. I would anticipate the bulls to step in here with some level of defense. But with that in mind, you are below all of your EMAs besides your 200 MA on the daily chart. And this is a pretty sharp turn down. I mean, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days. So 2 trading weeks, right? Dropping all the way from 785 down to whatever it is, 708. So that's roughly what, 10% drop right now? Which is not too great. Let's just do a quick little bloop. Yeah, 10% drop right now. So that moves Meta into correction territory, right? But it's ironic because that correction territory is right on the gap fill from the ER. So I anticipate some level of bullishness to potentially come in here. But it's not something I necessarily want to stand in front of either which way. I don't necessarily want to rush to be a bear, rush to be a bull at this particular point. As I'm saying that, Meta's dumping. Looking at Google, again, I will continue to remind you, Google is your canary in the coal mine for your Mag 7 names. And again, all your Mag 7 are trending lower at the moment. Now we're starting to get a little bit of a push up here in the pre-market, but in general, the trend is slowly moving to the south with your Mag 7 names. With the exception of Tesla right now, kind of breaking the trend here in the pre-market for all those Mag 7 names. Toby says, a good day for AMD shareholders. Yeah, let's talk about that real quick before the market opens. AMD announced a deal with OpenAI, and here's all my technical levels. Boom, went right through that, and we're just kind of grinding up here. I mean, this is going to get a nice little hype play here. I mean, hold on, let's go to the monthly. So we are actually literally, look at that, all-time high is 227.30. AMD is basically going to open on its all-time high on a gap. Just crazy, 37% gain today. If you're a long AMD calls or anything, please be smart and at least take some profit. Don't be stupid. A 37% move on AMD is wild. Please, please, please consider taking some profit. Good morning. Good morning, Negum. Thanks for popping by. Guys, we got 1 minute until the market opens, so I like to do this twice a stream. I'm going to ask you once now. I'll ask you once later as well. Do me a quick favor. If you haven't already, drop a like on the stream, interact, say hi with me in chat. A lot of you are already talking with me, so I appreciate you guys saying what's up. If you're watching on X, Instagram, Kick, Twitch, wherever I am, interact with the stream however you do. You subscribe, you follow, whatever. And don't forget, once we get over to 500 subscribers on the YouTube channel, this will be an everyday show. So if you enjoy the content, feel free to pop on over to the YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much for your support. We are now at 171 subscribers just a little day ago. Just a short while ago, I was a very small fish. I'm still a small fish, but I only had, when I started this, like maybe, I mean, obviously 0, but when I started doing the live stream stuff, we had like 20 subscribers. So thank you guys for the support. I'm glad you guys are appreciating and liking the content, and I hope to see you guys stick around some more. All right, market is open. Hatchet says SMH up 2.5% rotation from Mag 7. We'll talk about that in a little bit, Hatchet. We're just going to watch the open here just to see how things play out. Now, guys, as I remind you, it is a Monday morning. Monday mornings tend to have the most volatility, especially if you're on the buy to open side with contracts, right? So a lot of you I know are options traders. So now is a fantastic time to typically take profits if you have any swings that are up pretty well. any like long-term swings or anything like, oh, shorter-term swings are better because you'll probably get a little bit more IV juice on them. But if you have any profits to take, it's not going to hurt to consider taking those profits, especially if you're an AMD shareholder and you had a nice little gap up over the weekend. Now, one of these names I want to highlight to you guys that I was going to share today on the program, but kind of moved before I even had a chance to talk about it, is Path. We're going to come back and speak about this more than likely later today. So I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but I like Path quite a bit. We gapped up right now. We're up 7%, 8%. I originally got in somewhere around here, this $13-ish area, and we actually tapped my first price target here at $14.10. But this is a name, if you're not long already, you may want to consider. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show with decent risk reward. Now, maybe the risk reward's a little different now that we're up 10% on the day, but this is a really solid name. I think this is going to be one of those names that pulls a... All right, I'm going to say something dangerous here. Please take it with a grain of salt. Don't go crazy. But I think Path is going to pull a Palantir-esque kind of move where this thing has a path back up to like $80. It's currently trading like 14. So even getting in late if you're an equity trader, I think this is one of those names that is going to move very hard here in the near term. And the title of the stream, as you guys can see, is The Idiots Are Taking Over. We're going to talk about that later in the program as well. I had a good talk with my dad. I don't know if you're watching. Hi, Dad. But I had a good talk with my father over the weekend, and it made some gears turn in my head about trading that I want to highlight to you guys, and I want to share with you guys when we get into we get past market open a little bit. Good morning, Brandon. Brandon says IWMS. I don't know what the S means, but we'll take a peek at IWM right now. Looking like IWM's getting a little bit of a push here. Nice push here. On the open, we made a new, is this 52 week or is it all time? This is a new all-time high, I believe. Let me just triple check before I speak. Yep. New all-time high on IWM. You'll love to see it. We'll see if that continues. Watch this 417.18 for a potential backtest today before getting too excited. I think you may come down a little bit. Now, arguably, we've seen, like as you can see right here in the pre-market, we kind of like fluffed around it. So we kind of tested it in the pre-market before breaking higher. Almost got a back test here and then continued to move up. So theoretically, you could argue that a test happened in the pre-market. I like to see the test happen during market hours. Obviously, you have a lot more participation, a lot more volume. Hey, I'm not going to be mad if IWM just rallies and, you know, God bless. Hopefully, you're all making money. Let's look at the SPY right now. I'm not getting updated candles. There we go. Nothing but red candles since the market opened. And I'm reading, I just got an alert on NVIDIA down 2%. Let's take a peek at that. Yeah, NVIDIA down right now, falling through top support here. Now remember, we got this 183.30 level. Remember how important that level is? I'm actually going to take calls right now. It's early on a Monday, but I'm more than likely going to open a call here. I'll go 190s. I'll get some time on these because I'll probably swing these throughout the week. And I'm going to use this 183.30. Remember how much of a key support that was? All right, I'm long the 190 calls on NVIDIA at 109 average. Let me type that out. NVIDIA 10, 109, or 190. Sorry, not 109. Obviously, you guys understood that. But I'm at a 109 average. I dyslexiated myself. Those are already at 120, so we're already cooking. We are cooking with the gas. Now, if you've watched this program, you know why I just took that trade. This 183.30. Look, we were off by 3 pennies. Remember how important this 183.30 level is to NVIDIA on the daily. If we can break above this 184.55, this could get a sharp reversal here. Now, we are selling off early on a market open on a Monday, so it does not come without its own risk here. But that is a stab I'm willing to take. I have to be careful here, though, because I got in at 109. Keep an eye on your IV. The implied volatility on this chain, and I'm also a little bit out the money, so you got to keep these things in mind, is 40% right now. So we have to come back and just keep an eye on that, because if the IV does flutter around here, you could lose some money on not getting as much of a sharp move. Once we get a pop over this 184.55, I'll probably trim some out here. Look for this POC tap at 185.16 to consider a trim, unless I get to the, right around here, actually, it's not too bad. I'll take a few off right around now. That's a 19% gain on NVIDIA. And I'm actually going to slap a stop loss on these and run them for the whole day. So no matter what happens now, I walked with 19%, so solid gain, right? And now I'm just going to let these run. Because if we break above this general area here, let's look at the pre-market. If we break above, here, I'll put a red line on the chart you guys can see. Right there. Right around there. 186.21. Red line. I'll make it nice and thick so you guys can see it nice and clear. Boom. Getting above that area, it's going to put us above all of our EMAs, all of our MAs. You're going to break out of basically a resistance zone in the pre-market, and that gives you a lot of air to get back to that pre-market high at 189.99. These are 190 calls. That basically puts you in the money with contracts that expire on Friday. So, putting a stop loss at break even right now, you're still rocking. I mean, right now we got a 144 on these contracts. That gives you 32% gain. So we're rocking and rolling here. I'll probably take a trim if we get a little bit more up here, just to make sure I capture just a little bit of, take a little bit of risk off. Ivy is dropping, so just be careful. Ivy's at 39. So you're seeing a little bit of Ivy decay, and you're at the POC here. So this is where I said I'd probably trim some. Get another one more green candle here. I'll take a trim. Again, it's Monday morning. It's volatile. It's very rare that I take a trade on a Monday morning. So if I do, it's typically a higher confidence trade, like NVIDIA. Like this was a key daily, weekly level of support that, or I should say of resistance that flipped to support last week. And when you get those back tests like this, you got to think not short term, not, oh man, NVIDIA's selling off in the open. You think long term. You think, wow, we're back testing this daily resistance on NVIDIA. I should probably consider taking a long. I'm going to trim some out here, and I'm actually, now the rest I'll let run. So I'm going to take another trim here on NVIDIA. That's going to be a 38% gain. Sorry if you hear me click clack, and that's me type into our Discord community. Exclusive trading, and if you want to join that, feel free to check out the link in my bio down below, wherever you are. All right, so we're going to let the rest of these run. That's going to be the game plan here. These are just going to run. I've got a very sizable gain. I've already rocked a 38% gain. I've got decent size still in this. Just for reference, I'm over half size on my full position here. So for example, if I had $1,000 I was in a position, I have 500 left still on the table here in this position. Because I know the reward above this area, above this 186.21 could be massive. So we're going to let this rock. Again, these are 190 calls that expire at the end of the week, and there is a possibility that these could even go in the money today, especially with NVIDIA being NVIDIA, right? So I'm going to rock the bull side of things. We got a stop loss on. If you're a smaller account, you could even move that stop loss up just to protect some downside, protect some profits. We talked about that on last week's program. We talked about the opportunity cost behind a trade, right? So if I can get the chart here, I'll show you, which it's not loading for some reason. There we go. So maybe if you're in a smaller account, you could put a stop at like $1.23, $1.22. You protect a little profit there, give yourself a little buffer. Back testing the POC here, so we'll see if there's any continuation. I don't think this is going to be easy. In fact, I think we're kind of going to have a little bit of a sandwich here. As long as you remain north of 184.55, I'd still call this a valid trade to push for the break of the 186.21. All right, we caught a nice quick trade there. I was not anticipating that, but hey, sometimes that's how it works in the market. So we're going to go around and look at things now that we're still only 9 minutes into the market open. Right now, SPY still selling off from the open. Qs are also looking pretty weak, honestly. And IWM kind of sideways. I don't know if your name is Al Lamb or AI Lamb, but they say, miss the NVIDIA trade because Hood is down. Oh, no. Guys, here's a quick little PSA. I know everyone loves Hood. I know that this company, and why is my Weeble so slow today? I know that this company is just rocking and rolling, right? The stock is phenomenal. They're doing all these things. I'm still going to go out on a limb and call Hood the Fisher Price brokerage. If you trade on Hood with any sort of sizable money, it is still the Fisher Price brokerage. You are more than likely not getting the best uptime, which I've seen people complain quite a bit. Now, that might just be because people are using Hood quite a bit, but Hood sucks. Hood has consistently sucked. That is one of the main reasons I don't long Hood. But I'm not going to be dumb enough to short it. But I think they have a very nice interface. Their platform looks great, right? The UI is very friendly, especially to like newer traders. And I've used Robinhood before, right? I have an account with them. you get awful fills. A lot of the time, if there is a brokerage that's having an issue, typically Robinhood's the first one. And I'm never going to get rid of the stink out of the taste out of my mouth that what Robinhood did with the take away the buy button thing. I'm just saying. That's always going to rub me just the wrong way. Other brokerages did it too, right? But Hood kind of speared that, and they were supposed to be for the retail trader and all that crap. So I just have a sour spot for Hood. Again, I don't hate them, and I'm not going to be dumb and like short it as it just continues pushing higher and higher. And they're doing a lot of really cool things, bringing a lot of cool tools to retail, or they're offering like private banking and stuff like that. But guess what? It doesn't matter if it doesn't work. Negan said, yeah, Hood is stinking up today. And Hatchet says, my Weeble is slow too. Yeah, I'm noticing a little lag here on Weeble. I thought it was my internet connection, but I actually just checked. Connection's fine, so it actually must be some kind of broker issue at the moment. Now, I will say this. Oh, by the way, we tapped that resistance area, that 186.21. Was that to the penny? Ooh, I was off by a penny. It was 186.20. Damn. Pretty close. Anyway, here is the best not financial advice I could potentially give any of you. All right? So if you're listening right now, or if you're passively listening to me right now, do me a favor and actively listen to what I'm about to say, because this is the best advice that I could not give you, because it's not advice, but it's the best thing that you should consider, especially if you're a day trader. Okay? Here it comes. If any broker is having an issue that day, size down or don't trade at all. Here's why. Sometimes you'll see some weird stuff goes on when the bid and the ask flip, right? Or if Hood is down, or Fidelity is down, or E-Trade's down, whatever, whoever's down, right? And you are out here day trading a contract like I am with NVIDIA, right? And God forbid the trade just goes against you, the bottom falls out, and you're trading like a short-term contract like I am with NVIDIA. If you are at that kind of risk, and if there are brokers having an issue, you expose yourself to a brand new risk. You're already taking enough risk, putting your money on the line with a company that you see some sort of opportunity with, right? But opportunity can always sour. Now, there is the extra risk of, guess what? The market or the brokerage is just down. The platform's down. And guess what? When they're down and your contracts go worthless because you couldn't sell, they don't care. They're not going to refund you. They're going to tell you to screw off. So if there is ever a data issue, or CBOE is reporting an issue, or the bid and asks are flipped, or things are just slow, or any sort of things like this, always either take a step away and come back another day, lower your size dramatically, or don't trade at all, step away. Because you're taking on a risk that is no reward. It's just additional risk to your trade where you can't do anything about it, because guess what? You can make $1 million, but guess what? You can't make $1 million if you've got no one to sell to. If you can't process the trade, then there's no money to be made. I'm passionate about this because I got screwed one time for a few $1,000s when a brokerage account when a broker just couldn't work. And I was in an options trade, and I personally got screwed, and I've seen other people get screwed. So I'm quite passionate about this, and I learned my lesson the hard way. So I try to share that. Now, nothing's confirmed yet. I actually looked, and I saw a few people, like you guys mentioning in the chat, and one or two people mentioned it in the Discord, and I'm seeing a few people on X mention that Hood may be having an issue. But if a broker ever reports an outage, or especially if you're trading options contracts and CBOE is reporting an issue, get the hell out of the way. Because you're not making any extra money with them having an issue, unless it works in your favor that they give you a completely wrong bid or ask spread or something like that, and it just works in your favor. Other than that, you are taking extra risk you don't need to take for no advantage. So please do not do that. Be mindful of that. That is the best, not financial advice I could give you, but just generic life advice. I don't know, trading advice. It still is. I guess it's advice. But it's not how to make money or lose money. I guess it is how to lose money. But I'm not trying to make you make money with it. It's to prevent you from losing money. So I guess it is actual advice you could legally take. Cool. Someone can check me and see if that was legal for me to say. Anyway, NVIDIA just broke that 186.21. We're now rocking a $2 cost on these contracts. We're up almost over 100% on my calls, which is a beautiful thing to see on a Monday morning. I'll tell you that much. That is a beautiful thing. All right, this is weird. I don't know if any of you guys just saw that in real time, but up here under the price, it's flashing pre-market price. That's weird. Okay, there... What the hell is going on? Please rewind the stream if you didn't just see that. Look at these candles. What the actual hell is going... All right, I'm closing all my NVIDIA. I'm going to get out. What is happening? All right, I'm out. I don't care. I'm not taking the risk. Nope. All out, 93% gain. I just went on this rant. Yeah, I'm done. I have plenty of faith that this could still keep going, but the fact that you guys saw it on the stream. Anytime I see, look, my time and sales are all wonky. Like, the trade may work. I'm very, very confident this will go back basically up to 189.99. Anytime I see things like this, literally it's gone now. That price history's gone, but we wicked all the way down here. I don't know what the hell we just watched. There's no history of price moving down here. My time and sales went totally wonky. Up here it started flashing pre-market, whatever. No, done. Not making another trade today. If you don't like it, I don't care. Nope. That's the risk I'm talking about. Now, equity's fine, right? Because you don't take on that short-term risk when you're trading equity, unless you're trading like a micro cap or whatever. But no, we're not. I'm done. I'm rocking that 93%. That's it. And I'm not trading anything else today. I highly suggest you consider not trading anything else either. Anytime you see any kind of BS like that, like you just saw live on this stream, when a broker's having an issue, and I know you can't necessarily see my time and sales because I got my face covering half of it, but your time and sales go wonky, the volume goes wonky, the candles go wonky. Again, bid and ask flip, which didn't have that issue in this scenario. The price changes, like we were seeing with the pre-market flash. I'm watching the replay on my second screen here. Get the hell out. It's not worth it. You're taking on extra risk that you have no control over. And again, if you can't sell, there's no one to buy. Get the hell out of the way. Anytime I see that, I'm done. I'm not trading for the entire day. I don't care. Like I said, I might consider some equity trades. I am not touching a short-term option trade. You're out of your damn mind. Nope. No shot. That if there's one rule that you should apply for your trading, anytime, like, and again, I wasn't watching SPY, so maybe you guys in the chat can verify if that happened on SPY or not. But seeing that issue on NVIDIA, and being that it's not like a micro cap, right? And it's one of these, it's a mega cap. It is the biggest company. Seeing that issue on the biggest company in the world right now, in terms of data, well, this probably has the top priority to get the most accurate data, right? Theoretically. This having an issue, I have no faith in the market right now. And it's not that no faith bull or bearish. It's like the risk appetite, it's out the window. It's done. It's way too high right now. Because anything can happen, and I'm taking on extra risk where I may not even be able to close my position. Now I'm seeing reports of E-Trade having an issue. I see Fidelity. I'm just looking around online. Yeah, so now we're having multiple broker outages reported. What are you guys saying in the chat? Hood is back on. Maybe the volume says Negum. I'm Al, not an AI. Okay. Al says, I saw that, but it's back. Hatchet says, look at the volume spike on NVIDIA. I did see that. But again, this is where the problem candle was, which is weird. And that's an insane volume too, right? How much? Wait, what the hell? Oh, wait. 12 million. Okay. Yeah, okay. That is an insane amount of volume. But that also tells me there's something... I don't believe that to be correct. I feel like that's an issue. And I feel like if we come back tomorrow, this is going to adjust like that's incorrect. Yep, Negum says now Fidelity's having issues. Spy had a huge volume spike too. And Al says, I only saw it on your screen, but I didn't see it on Schwab. Yeah. Be careful on Schwab too, because Schwab and E-Trade are the same business, or the same company now. And E-Trade's having issues. If you guys are seeing in real time, and I know my face is blocking some of the screen, every time I click on a new, this normally doesn't happen. I'm checking my internet connection. My connection's great. My time and sales are lagging. And I'm happy I had that little rant prior to that happening because, again, and I'm going to stress it to you guys. I know it's Monday. You guys are excited. Look, my time and sales are not loading. Well, now it is. I'm going to stress it to you guys again. I know it's Monday. I know a lot of you are really itching to trade. You saw a lot of opportunities. You take a lopsided risk where with no additional reward if the plumbing of the market is not working as it should. Because you take on the normal risk you take when you take a trade, but there's no extra reward when the market, when brokers are not doing their job, when they're having outage issues, because you will what will happen to me will happen to you when you're in a trade. Perhaps it's NVIDIA, right? Perhaps you're still in the NVIDIA calls at 109, right? And perhaps NVIDIA just dies on a vine, right? And perhaps all the brokers are closed out, and when they come back up or come back online or whatever, you can only close the contracts at 20 cents and you take a massive loss. But you would have closed it at your break even or whatever, right? It's ancillary extra risk you don't need to take. Eddie says, finally not me with my Thinkorswim. I almost got screwed a few weeks ago with that. Yeah, I actually heard that Thinkorswim was having a few issues. I know people love Thinkorswim. I personally don't like their platform, but I know people really love Thinkorswim, and I've seen a lot of people reporting issues there. Cody says TradingView doesn't show the... Yeah, see? That's what I just said. Cody says TradingView doesn't show the NVIDIA volume spike. That's what I'm telling you. This has got to be an error. Like something, and it makes sense because that was the point in time where all the data was all wonky and stuff. So I bet you this will get corrected tomorrow. Eddie making the smart decision saying, agreed, I will be sidelining today. Yes. Now again, like I just said, and I'll reiterate, if you're buying equity or selling equity, you're fine. Like that's not extra risk. But if you're trading short-term equity, so you're trading like microcaps, right, aggressively, you have to worry about that. Or if you're trading you're day trading equity, right? You take on the same risk, but you're not going to have a terrible loss like you could with an options trade that goes wrong, right? So there could be some opportunity there as it pertains to like if you want to trade equity today. And you know what? For the rest of the show, we'll watch the market a little bit more. We'll give it another like 7 minutes or so. But I'll get into sharing some equity names with you guys because I kind of teased it on X when I was sick. And I found a few names that are actually some pretty cool opportunities. So I'll at least share some opportunities with you guys, some equity opportunities that you might want to consider today. And these are more like longer term. So this is not going to be a day trade opportunity necessarily, but some things you may want to consider for your trading. So at least I'll share that with you and give you some things to chew on. My man, dropping the Atom with the love eyes in the chat. Thank you. I don't know how the hell to say your name. Oh, here we go. Subi Saiyan. It's like Super Saiyan, but it's not. Subi Sahan. Your name's Lewis or Lois. Either way, what's up? Thanks for saying hi. Or, well, thanks for just saying my name, I guess, but I'm assuming that's equal to hi. So we're going to try to make the best of today, guys, like I always like to do. We're going to try to make the best that we can out of what we have, right? The market is going to always give us something to chew on, so we'll watch the market a little bit more. We'll at least kind of see if we can kind of get an idea of which way the market's leaning for this week. We'll check out the sectors. And then, like I said, I've got a few solid equity names that I charted out this weekend. I'll share with you guys. And these are not names I've taken a position in yet, but I'm contemplating taking positions in. So I'll share that with you guys in probably about like 5 or 6 minutes here. I'm kind of waiting till 10 o'clock to see if we can get a little bit more data in and then basically kind of go from there. So we'll wait and see and kind of move from there. Path is still, ooh, there's Viking. Viking up today. Nice, almost 8%. Big move on Viking. Subi Shayan says very close. I will take it. I'm happy I did a good job. Yeah, check out Viking Therapeutics up 7.6%. This is a name I am long on, and I've been long on, and I missed the boat on selling before they came down a little bit. But currently at around $32. Solid name to keep an eye on. And again, I mentioned Path earlier. Path is also up right now about almost 12%, 11.5%. So if you like those AI names, you want some AI adjacent exposure. That's not direct. I mean, it is AI, but like as a few deals with NVIDIA and Snow, you might want to take a look at Path. I'm not saying don't chase it, but if it offers you that opportunity and you want more of a little bit of a long-term opportunity, I think Path could be one of these companies that pulls kind of like a Palantir, and it started high, comes down low, and eventually gets back to where it was and goes even higher. So I actually really like Path for like a very long opportunity. Al says, yeah, you're right. Hood down again, so it's good to shut it down. Guys, I don't tell... You know, I give myself slack for it because I know sometimes I come off like I'm killing the fun, right? All of you want to trade, you want to make a lot of money, you want to have a lot of fun, right? Especially with it being Monday, right? There are just times where it's not worth it. And there are times where it is worth it. You're banging out trades left and right. You're making a ton of money. But there are times where it's simply not worth it. And the times where it's really not worth it is when brokers are having an issue. I'm now getting an issue on my public for one of my spreads. Like, it's just completely the wrong information. So this is now, I've got reports from Fidelity, E-Trade. You guys are saying Hood. I can visually see that Weeble's messing up and public. And apparently, I think Eddie mentioned Thinkorswim. So almost every broker's having an issue. Don't force yourself. And this is the other thing too. Last little piece of not advice I'd like to bestow upon you guys. Have multiple brokerages. Split the money up however you want to. Maybe you have a long-term broker. Maybe you have a short-term trades broker that you typically use. Whatever. Maybe you have one for day trades. You have one for swing trades. Whatever you want to do. But have multiple brokers, because there are scenarios in which a broker is just completely down and all the other ones are fine. And genuinely, like, the market just seems okay, right? There's no other weirdness or anything like that. Or they're just having a glitch. Whatever happens. If there's an opportunity you really want to take, you don't want the inability to be able to take it. And having multiple brokers doesn't cost you any money, right? So some brokers are better off for certain things, right? If you are trading, for example, SPX contracts, you probably want a big boy broker, as I call them, like an E-Trade, a Fidelity, a Schwab, whatever, one of these brokers that typically charge a commission for options trades. Or if you're trading options aggressively, especially if they're cheaper contracts, that fill is very important. But if you're more of a lackadaisical trader, or you don't have the size for it, then you can use like a smaller platform, right? Or a smaller brokerage. Like, these are things that don't matter as much, especially if you're trading larger size contract. If you're trading contracts that are like $5 a call or whatever, $5 a slippage doesn't really matter because the spread is $5 either way. So you don't have an issue there with slippage. But if you're trading contracts that are between 10 and 11 cents, that's a 9% difference. That slippage could really hurt you. So, I mean, that's a really tiny example, but you get my point. Eddie says, no TOS, still fine so far, but personally I'm not risking it. I don't blame you, brother. I don't blame you at all. And now I'm seeing a lot of people just mention it on, I'm just checking X right now real quick. I'm seeing a lot of people just mention, and people complaining that they can't trade. So that is a good sign for me to go risk off completely and not trade at all. I don't care, because again, you are taking extra risk that you can't control. So let's take a peek around the market. That doesn't mean we can't prepare for the rest of the week or look at things where there could, again, be some opportunity potentially for equity trade. So let's take a look at the market. We'll do a full market analysis for the day so far. We'll look at our sectors, and then I'll highlight some names that I'm pretty interested in. Sound like a good plan, guys? I think that's a fun plan. So SPY right now currently trading at the lows. We're below that 6,757 area. Looking like we might come back to retest at 66937 right now. Not a strong move necessarily to the downside. That's probably due to the fact that NVIDIA came down, moved back up, and NVIDIA is going to more than likely, like I said, as long as it's north of this, get all the way back up to that 190 area. It wouldn't shock me, honestly. So I'm still calling for NVIDIA to stay green or go green on the day, assuming it can hold over this 186.21. Which would theoretically push SPY up. So we're still seeing some more weakness come through on the SPY. Interestingly enough, the Qs kind of came down and trying to build some level of a base here. And conversely, IWM selling off pretty aggressive. I don't want to use the word aggressively, but sharp. I want to be careful because we're not falling in a large quantity, like dollars. It's not a sharp, strong fall. It's a slow, plodding fall with a strong trend, I guess is what I'm trying to say. On IWM right now. Watch that 247.18 today. That's probably going to act in play all day today. So basically this LOI here. If you see a few wicks down here, which we're starting to get, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're seeing some potential buying come through. Unless we break the low, which we're trying to break the low here. So buyers might be trying to step in here if we can build out a tiny base. Watch for the retest there. If retest rejects, and you will more than likely go lower. And so far, we're still breaking the low here in real time, so that is not a sign to buy the dip yet. VIX climbing up. We have a VIX 17 right now. We're over that 1653 level, so definitely want to be aware of that. That volatility has moved and continuing to move into expansion here. 1718 is your next level to watch on the VIX. Interestingly enough, though, UVXY is not moving up. It is moving up sharply, but it's not moving up to the same, I want to use the word propulsion, right? The same trajectory as the VIX is right now, comparatively speaking. Which tells me, again, UVXY takes a longer term picture of the VIX, but still like medium term, I guess. I believe it's 30 or 60 days average, 30 days in the future. And obviously your VIX is your spot VIX, right? So, I like to use UVXY as a means of looking at volatility a tiny bit longer term, right? And the VIX is the volatility like for today, right in the second. So it kind of gives you like a short term, like today, and like a midterm, like meaning like this week kind of outlook. At least that's how I personally use it when comparing VIX and UVXY. And typically they move together, obviously, right? But like I said, like the trajectory in which they move is something I look at. Oh, now it's moving a little sharper. You got this nice little green candle here. Which you had here as well. So maybe they are moving together. It just didn't seem like it at the time. VVIX is also moving up, so which makes sense. As you get a sharper move on volatility, that increases the odds of volatility to increase, or the volatility of volatility to increase. So this is all lining up for potentially volatile day, which lines up with potential broker outages, which is interesting. Microsoft right now sitting near the high, actually having an okay day here. Still sustaining above that key level of 512.76. You're about $10 higher right now, breaking out of arguably some level of a retracement base here where we filled the gap. It came a little lower, coming back up. Let's use this high, 519.30. That's the area I'm watching on the daily. You saw that interaction today and it pushed up essentially. Let's go back to the 1 minute and show you guys. Basically opened on it and pumped from there. You could see a nice, so if we get a back test here on the 519.30, you could have a nice opportunity to long there, not only on a day trade, but also potentially on like how the weekly's setting up, depending on how much time and how close you go in the money, out the money. Next area I'd watch is right around here, like basically the high of this candle here, 530.11. So you got about $10 there on the retest, 10, $11. Not bad. Microsoft is definitely leaning more bullish now after it got out of dodge here, kind of making like a funky inverse head and shouldery kind of pattern. Consolidation, broke the low, quick reversal, consolidation. So you do have a little bit of like an inverse head and shoulder above all EMAs and MAs once again. So this is showing bullish trend for Microsoft, whereas about a week ago was not necessarily the case, a little bit over a week ago. Apple here, watch this 8 EMA very closely if you're a bull. You're basically high and tight here, and arguably kind of like a flat top-ish breakout, or if I'm not a breakout yet, but a flat top forming. What I really don't like, and actually I'll put a line here. What's this? 557. We'll do 25735. 25735. Look at this in real time here. So high of this candle 25734, high of this candle 25760. And both closed beneath. Then, what's the close of this one? 25713. So, and this one was the only one that closed above it. So far, this candle, which is last Friday's candle, was the only candle that closed above this 257.35 area on Apple going back to 923, which is about 2 weeks. So we're consolidating up here and arguably forming some level of a flat top as the 8 EMA comes up to pinch it. So this could be forming a flat top breakout to push for another leg here. What I don't like is how the overall market is kind of looking right now. It's a little slippery here. And how this MACD is kind of curling down here, or could be curling down to the downside. We zoom out on the weekly here. It's had a pretty sharp propulsion to the upside here. Not that that's a bad thing, but it would make sense to get some level of cooling here a little bit. So I do anticipate, actually, and the monthly looks actually pretty solid for a push. But I do anticipate some level of a retracement here. And I'm not saying it dropping anything crazy. And I mentioned this about 2 weeks ago that I would prefer to see the gap fill here. And I got that alert here at 246.60, a few shekels higher than the fill. I would prefer to see the gap fill before we get that leg. I do think, so I know, I believe Hatchet, you asked me one time, when do you look at a flat top breakout, or what do you look at a flat top for a breakout? This is one of those scenarios where I don't think this flat top breaks out. However, so let me contradict myself here. Note the volume here in the last 3 days is actually pretty solid, but again, not enough fervorance to really break over that line. We just closed above it on Friday a little bit on higher volume, which is a good sign. So what I would do in this scenario to confirm a high top or flat top breakout, because we basically have a second flat top right here, right? Basically the high of today, the high of Friday, and the high of that, I think that's Wednesday, the prior Wednesday. So here, we'll put a line right here at this high, 259.24. I would look for, so here's your two scenarios set up here, and I'm calling you out, Hatchet, because I'm pretty sure you asked specifically about flat tops. I'm predicting that this would actually fall to the downside. So this would be a failed flat top breakout, and it would actually be a rejection. However, if 259.24 breaks with volume, keyword there, that would confirm a flat top breakout to me. So two-pronged approach here, where I'm not necessarily looking to short it, right? But I am looking to long it. It's just two areas in which I want to long it from. And one is a more bullish scenario, and one's more of a little bit of a bearish scenario, right? And I actually have a one of the equity names I want to pull up to show you guys that has a similar setup here, where if it moves higher, then I want to get in as a bull, and if it moves lower, I want to get in as a bull. So the risk is just obviously different. If we break the 259.24, then it's more than likely a quicker move with more momentum. If we come down again to this 246.60 area, might need to float there. We'll reassess with technicals. It may take a little while before it gets back up here, and then it gets that break and sharp move. So very similar, again, if we want to use a real life example, and as we talked about in this program, to the 183.30 level I talked about with NVIDIA at nauseum, and how important this level is, and how many times I personally have shorted this level. Same kind of rhetoric here, where it could be a big old base, a big old flat top, right? But until you get a bar like this, right, with volume on 930, then it's not a flat top breakout. So those are the kinds of things you want to be mindful of. So again, reiterating on Apple, I'd either wait for 259.24 or wait for 246.60 before being a bull. So again, it's not bearish. I would only be bullish in this scenario, but those are the two triggers I'd wait for before considering a bull position on Apple at its current state. Amazon here, again, as long as Amazon is under 221, this is a bear. Do not touch Amazon, in my opinion. Now, I will say for the bulls, we are leaving some wicks down here, which is really nice. This wick did break a new low on this range, but we are pushing higher on the daily chart here. So we're showing price reaction. We're showing some bulls showing up before the 200 MA, which is actually a good sign if you're a bull here. Again, I wouldn't be too confident on Amazon, though, until we see a sustained hold over 221. And I believe they have Prime Day deals or whatever this week. That has lost a lot of its allure, but that could obviously give you some level of potential news catalyst if they come in and say, wow, Prime Day deals were great. Or if they say, sales were down quite a bit. Either way, that could give you a catalyst one way or the other. Just south of 221, this is a no touch. And again, I don't even necessarily want to short it. It's very similar. The shorting opportunity is up here, obviously, right? We're looking with hindsight. But I don't necessarily want to take a short unless it's an intraday trade. Meta is just a dumpster. It's more than likely going to tap the devil's number down here at 666-ish. Unless, again, the bulls can hold the gap here. So right now we actually gap beneath the gap at the open. So we have gapception going on. So we'll see. This area will be an area to keep on watch. Specifically, that number 70802. So keep an eye on that if you are a Meta bull. But I've been bearish on Meta. I've been talking about how I'm bearish on Meta for like the last 2 weeks, and here's why. Hatchet says, if it is a flat top breakout, are you usually trying to wait for confirmation then enter? So it depends, Hatchet. So if we're talking, so we'll go back to Apple as an example. This is a daily chart, right? And actually, we can go back to NVIDIA for the same example. This is a daily chart. So those areas I was watching for that flat top break were on the daily, right? So I have a little bit of flexibility there because that daily chart translates to shorter time frames. So when you get a daily break, the move tends to be a larger move because that's an important level on the daily chart. If we're looking at a flat top breakout, like if I saw this on the 1 minute chart, that's a completely different conversation. You know what I mean? So having that confluence on a longer term time frame. So what I would like to see, what I would love to see, is if I had a bullish setup on Apple intraday, right? So right now this is just kind of making like a V-bottom kind of thing. But if there was some sort of setup, so if I had a flat top in the flat top, or I had an inverse head and shoulder, whatever kind of cup and handle, whatever thing you're looking for here, right? Intraday. And also you're breaking a key level on the daily. That's the kind of confirmation I look for a flat top breakout on the daily. I want to see the intraday line up to give that break. Right? So I need the intraday chart, so your 1 minute, your 5 minute charts, to line up to have the, I almost want to say like the momentum, the ability to break that flat top on the daily, if that makes sense. So that's what I would look for. If I see that we're interacting with this area, so again, we're looking at daily candles here the last 4 days, I need to see, zoom in, go down to the 1 minute here, or the 5 minute, whatever you want to use, and I need to see that Apple's sitting in a situation here on the 1 minute, on the 5 minute, 3 minute, whatever you trade for intraday charts, that it could make that break intraday. And I know that on the daily, it has the ability to push, right? So I need confirmation short term for the long term break. Hopefully that makes sense. Google not having too bad of a day. We're kind of consolidating around here. I think I mentioned this last week where we'd probably consolidate around like this 240 area before getting a reversal. And it's looking like we're getting that right now. Again, canary in the coal mine. I wouldn't shock me to see the SAR break, not today, but see a SAR break and then push a new all-time high on Google here in the next month. Assuming, let me catch myself, assuming we stay north of like 240. Tesla had that decent rejection, which you guys saw when I was live. I took a decent little short there. Came back and back tested my 419.81, left a wick, came up. You're kind of sitting north of this 0.786 retracement right now. Not really much to see here on the daily chart or intraday, really. It's just kind of fluffing along here. Probably if you're a Tesla bull or a bear, you're going to want to wait for a day or two to kind of just see where things lie, because you had a nice little push, a grind up, a hard push, and obviously people took profit, shorted, whatever, on high volume. If you're a bull, you want to see it kind of float here before getting back in to ride it even higher. If you're bear, you want to see if you can break below Friday's close for a potential bear continuation. I will say you got a decent cluster of support here, so you do want to keep that in the back of your head. I would not position either bullish or bearish on Tesla, at least at this point in time, but just highlighting things for you to consider if you are a bull or a bear on Tesla. All right, let's pop back to the market. We'll hit the sectors, then we'll hit some of these individual equity names. Well, as foretold by my crystal ball, SPY almost came down to 66937, came down to 66946, low a day, and a nice little jump off of there. Q's basically chopping sideways, while IWM had a little bit of a drop and kind of looking like how SPY looks, very similar, while the Q's are kind of bucking the trend here, looking like we're going to try to get some momentum here for our tech names. Looking at the VIX, had a little bit of rejection there, just shy of the 1718 area, and same thing here with UVXY. Man, maybe this was like blessing and not a curse, because I closed out somewhere up here or right around here, whatever it was. So, because NVIDIA came down. So, hey, maybe that was a blessing. You never know. Sometimes things like that happen. Tesla news potentially big coming tomorrow afternoon. Interesting. I didn't see anything about that, but I might be wrong. I don't know. Let me take a peek. Let's take a peek. Tesla. I don't see anything, unless someone in the chat wants to correct me. I don't see anything scheduled, but I could be wrong. I'm not one of these, I'm not a Tesla fanboy. I don't stalk them with their news and everything, so I may be wrong. It's just not, I don't see it where I would typically see news for Tesla. Just saying. So if someone, feel free to correct me. I might be wrong. There may be news. I don't know. I don't see it. Do with that what you will. Apparently, Goldman Sachs 6 minutes ago raised their price target on NVIDIA to 210. Right here on this little low of this little candle here, the low of the range, really interesting. All right, let's pop around to our sectors here. see what we got going on, and then we'll zoom into some individual names, and then I'll cut you guys free. It'll be a good day. Like I said, I'm personally not making any more trades today. You do whatever you want to do, but anytime there's a broker issue, nope, don't care. Not worth the risk. I don't need to go on that tangent again, but you know. All right, before I get into it, I asked you guys twice a stream. We got a good amount of people here. If you guys can do me a favor, if you're enjoying the stream, interact with it somehow, share it out to some people, hit the like button if you haven't already. I think we only have, hold on, let me double check. We only have 8 likes in the stream. Now, normally we get a little bit over 10. So if we can get over 10 likes, that'd be cool. So if you haven't already, drop a like on the stream. And if you haven't, follow me over on X, Kick, Twitch, Instagram, wherever you are watching me, wherever you're enjoying the program, hit the follow or the subscribe button. And don't forget, if you really enjoy the program and you want to see more of it, pop over to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe there. Once we hit 500 subscribers, this will be an everyday show. So make sure you tell your friends and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you again for the support. Now the cheap plug's out of the way. All right, let's take a peek here. Actually says potentially a low-cost car. I did see someone mention that. They did a teaser video. They did 2 teaser videos yesterday. Interesting. Yeah, I saw them mention a lower-cost vehicle. Here, all right, here's something that could be a little, tiny bit controversial. I think Tesla releasing a lower-cost car is going to be bearish. I think it would be bearish because Tesla almost has the appeal of like a luxury brand. And if you compare it to something like Lucid, that's like the luxury electric car, right? But Tesla's in this really sweet spot that they actually hold almost like luxury prestige, right? With their branding. And a cost that isn't necessarily like some of their vehicles obviously can have more of luxury pricing. And it is higher priced, but it doesn't necessarily price out everyone. It's not like a Bentley. It's not like a Bugatti, right? Upper middle class individuals can buy a Tesla, or middle class individuals. Some middle class individuals can buy a Tesla, can afford it, and it has very high brand, like luxury branding because of all the cool technology and stuff with it, right? I think they actually potentially really damage their reputation with a lower cost vehicle. Now, obviously, the idea is economics of scale, right? Where you want to get as many people as you can to adapt your product to buy your product. And the only way this would, I think, long-term be beneficial for them is obviously with the money that they make through the charging stations, right? So that is a potential, and obviously forcing them to be the standard. You see a lot of the other electric vehicles are actually changing like their charging ports and stuff to match Teslas. So they're just trying to become the standard, which offers a benefit because everyone needs Tesla to exist to have their electric cars exist, right? So there is 2 schools of thought there. I at least would say that if they do introduce a low-cost car, it would be at least a short-term bear catalyst. But I do think it could potentially harm their brand just because I think their brand is a more, like I said, it's almost like a luxury brand, but not really. It's a higher end brand. What do you guys think in the chat? I'm curious on what your guys' opinion is that. For those of you that, I mean, obviously a lot of you may trade Tesla or know of Tesla. Do you think that if Tesla offers a low-cost car that may harm their brand and conversely harm their share price? I'm of the mentality that it could at least near term. And I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I think it would actually harm the brand. Anyway, while you guys ponder that and maybe drop something in the chat, we'll circle back to that. But while we're waiting for that, we will pop over to the sectors, see what's going on. Right now, utilities are up about 0.5, 0.6% on the day, kind of sitting around where it opened after the first 5-minute open candle. So looking pretty okay here. Energy kind of, again, up 0.58%, so decent, but kind of fluffing around here. Consumer staples, again, when we're comparing our defensive sectors, and I like to group them up here so you guys can see, consumer staples has been lagging significantly. And look at the daily chart on your XLP, just going down over and over again. I have a few thoughts on this, on why we're seeing consumer staples go down, obviously with like tariffs and whatnot, but this goes back to my thesis of the idiots taking over the stock market. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I have a theory here for you guys to at least consider and why some consumer staple companies may be worth a look at soon. Not yet, soon. Some of them more than others, but things to consider. XLK at its all-time high, essentially up 1.23%. Beautiful up day for big tech. Interesting to see XLK up. And again, the Qs are holding sideways, so it's not bad, but you'd think the Qs would be a little bit more bullish, and they're not. So that's interesting to see. Real estate down actually a pretty decent amount, 0.7% on the day here, wicking the 48 EMA here. So we'll see. It's kind of had a rough go of it the last few days here. Looks like we're in a period of price discovery on the XLRE. So that's interesting to see. XLB up marginally. Daily chart's looking like it's ready to get a push here on materials. And on the monthly. So materials look okay. Industrials flat. Healthcare down a little bit here after a sick move here for the last few days on your XLV. XLF pretty flat, down 0.3%, so a little bearish. XLY, so your consumer discretionary, and again, this is your Amazon and your Tesla mainly. Kind of consolidating at the high here. It's looking a little bearish though. And because of how we know Tesla's looking right now, which is not necessarily bearish, but could go bearish, and Amazon is bearish under 221, you might see the XLY catch a little bearishness here in the near term. I would watch it to come down to this 233 area. And XLC, actually a decent down day, down 0.73% on your comm services right now. Decent down day, so very mixed bag. Very, very mixed bag on the day. I call this a Christmas tree when you see a lot of green and red, and by decent margins. So anything that's over like 0.5% on any of these sectors is like a good day or a bad day, right? That's a decent move on the sector in general. At least that's my barometer. You can do whatever you want. I'm saying anything over 0.5% on any of these ETFs that make up the SPY essentially is a considerable move, right? And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 out of the 11 sectors, so over half, making a big move on the Monday morning. So that's interesting to see, especially so notating that in your head and going back to our SPY chart and really not going anywhere. We're essentially flat on the day. Qs are pretty flat. IWM is trying to get a recovery. So that in itself is very interesting, right? So again, it might be a blessing in disguise. I will reiterate again, NVIDIA is probably going to go to 190 today. Now that they got this upgrade at that very particular time after selling off, it just happened to get an upgrade at 1012 on this candle right here that I'm highlighting. Just happened to get an upgrade. Ooh. So we're probably going to see that might be enough to break it. Watch your high of the day here to break to that 190-ish area, 189, whatever it was, 189.98, something like that. And I would be still holding my contracts, but I'm not going to because I'm not taking the risk with brokers today. Anyway, let me go over to some of my recently viewed names. Let's see what you guys said in the chat. So, Toby says, I firmly believe no one cares anymore about Tesla cars from an investing standpoint. It's not a car company, and it's not valued around its car business. And when deliveries were out, nobody cared. I think people cared. I understand what you're saying. I think a lot of people are investing, and I do agree overall with your sentiment. I do believe that people are investing in Tesla almost as a future play, right? With robotics and whatnot, where you're investing more in the technology they could produce, and the car company is kind of like the backbone driving the revenue to explore other things. I actually like to look at Tesla almost like an Apple when Apple was starting to like branch out, right? So Apple had the Macintosh computer, and then they branched out to the iPod, and then they branched out to, the iPhone, and then all the other peripherals, right? And I actually think Tesla is of the same ilk, right? I think Tesla's doing a similar thing where, yes, they are a car company first, just like Apple is a computer company first, but then they move into other things. And I think that's what Tesla's attempting to do through innovation, which I like quite a bit. Obviously, they need the car business to pay the bills, right? So I do agree with your sentiment here, Toby, that it's not a car company anymore. But I think if you're using the car company, if it was like a human body, and Tesla was a human body, the car company is the spine of Tesla, right? So that spine has to be in place and in good standing to hold up the whole body, right? And that's kind of how I would view it. Again, not that you're necessarily wrong, but I overall agree with your sentiment here. Hatchet says Tesla wants to do what Henry Ford did with the Model T. Yeah. Might change the brand, but share price is being driven by robot and robo-taxi expectations. I would agree with that sentiment. I would agree more with the robot than the robo-taxi thing. I think the robo-taxi thing's hot air. Not that it won't work, but like, I don't. Okay. As someone who lives in New York, I have to drive everywhere, and I don't live in New York City, so yeah, you could make a lot of money in New York City or whatever, but I think people want their own car to drive places. Sure, some people don't care or whatever, and they'll pay for a robo-taxi. Sure, people are going to buy a car to think of it as a revenue-producing vehicle, literally and figuratively, pun intended, that they could generate more money on by renting it out, but that allure is going to go away when one guy owns 300 Teslas and just rents them out and monopolizes the area, essentially, right? So I don't have a lot of faith in the robo-taxi thing for driving a lot of revenue. I think it's good for the brand, though. Toby agrees with Hatchet. Eddie says, I agree on Tesla, but think it's changing already. The news is out that it's the most affordable car at 2 lease with good safety. Here in South Florida, every one in town houses have a Tesla. Interesting. Toby says, very interesting comparison there, Adam. Didn't think about it that way. Yeah, I mean, that's why I asked you guys these questions, because you guys actually, you also provoke thoughts for myself to think about. So these are the kind of conversations I like to have on the program with you guys sometimes, where I don't think I'm God or this amazing investor. I do pretty good for myself, right? But challenging each other to speak and kind of having a forum to do so, I think is very productive, because you may open up a new thing. And that's kind of what I want will be a perfect segue into what I want to talk to you guys about. The idiots are taking over the stock market. What does that mean, right? What I mean by that is we're seeing a point in time where a lot of people are making a lot of money very quickly. And it's not that they're wrong or anything like that, but we've seen a lot of movement in stocks like Open, stocks like RGTI, quantum computing companies, AI companies. If you just, took a handful of money and threw it at the wall, and as long as the company has the word AI somewhere in it, you're making money, essentially. And not that that's a bad thing, but a trap that I've personally fallen into myself, and some of you may have fallen into, is I've avoided some of these names because sometimes I look at them and I go like, it's just not like, I don't believe in it, right? I just don't. It may be not technically sound the way I want it to be, or I don't necessarily believe in the vision. It's not that I don't disagree with the ability of something to get where it needs to go, but we're getting to the point, we're not there yet, and I think we're going to go there and we're going to surpass it. But I think where I was wrong with the market, and I've been waiting for this pullback, I've talked about it, and I'm thinking the market needs a 10% correction. Where I'm wrong, and where I'm willing to be wrong on this, is that as the dollar devalues, equity will continue to hold its value. So equity will continue to rise as DXY goes down. If you don't know that, that's the relationship. As the dollar weakens, the market tends to go up. And the dollar has been weakening and has been kind of on a trend to continue weakening, at least at the last few months, right? And consequently, the market has gone up. That influences more money to pour into the market. That also influences more newer traders to come into the market, right? And I believe we're going to be at the point where it's going to be very easy to make money. And someone like myself, and I know some other traders I respect, have found themselves a little frustrated with seeing overnight 30, 40, 50% gains just because someone mentioned AI or it's a small company and they're like, oh, we now are going to have a deal to do quantum computing or whatever it may be. And we're getting to the point of everyone's talking that we're in a bubble. And we may very well be in a bubble, but the bubble is this big. And I am now have changed my thought process a little bit, and I still would hope we get a correction on the stock market. But if we don't, regardless if we do or we don't, the bubble is only this big right now. And I think the bubble has the ability to get insurmountably huge. I think there is enough room for a very hard rally on your small caps in the near term. If we don't see a pullback on the market, I would watch that all-time high level on IWM very closely, because I do believe we're actually going to have a hard break and a push here very soon on IWM. Looking at the monthly, how it's shaped up, this thing's ready to go. We are ready to push here. Now, this is where I have an issue. Excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green candles in a row. It's been on a tear. Half of the year, from basically your tariff lows, half of the year has just been up, right? And the volume's been increasing as we go up. And this is such a strong sentiment driver. That's why I try to drive home with you guys that your small caps drive the sentiment, at least for me. It's my barometer for overall stock market sentiment, how people feel, if they feel more bullish, more bearish. And IWM continues to push and push and push and push. And if, now that we're sitting at the all-time high, around this all-time high, if we consolidate here for a little bit without any sense of rejection, I think we're at the point where we're really going to keep going here. And with that being said, that opens the door to SPY continuing to just mush to the upside here and hit my 700 price target by the end of the year without getting that correction. It may not come. It just may not. Now, I've personally taken some short positions and made some money shorting the market overnight, but I got out of the way really quickly and made my money and left kind of thing, because I'm starting to see this, and it's starting to look like, yes, there are arguments in place for some level of a pullback on the market, but the sentiment is so strong, and we're seeing these companies. AMD announced a deal with OpenAI, gapped up to a new all-time high. Just shy of its all-time high. And just off the news of talking about that, I want to remind you right now that this is a $300 billion company, and it is appreciated. I believe it was almost 50% at the open. Massive appreciation here. 35%, something like that. Hold on, right there. 33% on a gap up. It's a massive company to do that, right? The fact that that much liquidity has moved around that quickly, that to move this stock and have it gain over a third of its value overnight just because someone farted out the words OpenAI. And yes, obviously business, that says that they're going to be making more money in the future. I'm just trying to highlight the importance of sometimes things get to the point where they are logical. And as a person who is a very logic-brained individual, when things move to the realm of irrationality, I have a very hard time coping with it because I can't justify things. It's just like, it's just going up because it's going up. And I just saw a really funny tweet the other day. I was in reference to Lucid stock, and someone made a joke on how they bought it and they set their price target for $50, and they said, "Well, how did you get the price target of $50? What made you come up with that?" And he said, "Well, I put my thumb up my butt, I held it up and went, that's about right." And I think that's where the kind of rhetoric that we're getting into in this market, where we're seeing a lot of names get a really strong push. And when I'm saying the idiots are taking over, I'm not calling you or me or anyone necessarily an idiot. But when I say an idiot, I'm talking about the dumber money kind of aspect that we saw back in 2021. A great example is Tilray. And I don't believe that was 2021. That was 2018 when we had the weed hype, right? The original weed hype. Yeah, 2018. This thing IPO'd at $23, and I think it was like 3 days. Hold on, let's go all the way back to the daily chart here. But in a very short amount of time, this chart went all the way up to $300. Or it wasn't 3 days, but within a 2-month period, okay, still went all the way up to $300 from a 2022 whatever it was dollar IPO. Insane on nothing. Right? I mean, yes, they sell weed and whatever is pharmaceutical fluff, hot air, story stocks. I am now, again, what I'm going to be wrong about and what I'm opening myself up to be wrong about, I am now ready to take extra risk on story stocks. Stocks that, like aviation names like Joby and ACHR, that are these kinds of names that can push higher. Just because in the future there could be more money involved with them. On some of these AI stocks, just because in the future they could make more money, right? I think that's where short term the opportunity is going to be. And when I say things are going to be like 2021, and this was a 2018 example, but when things are going to be like 2021, when COVID happened, we saw, for example, GameStop went whatever, it was $5 to 400, 420.69, I think exactly. But we're going to see this happen. And I'm pretty confident of that right now. Especially as long as the dollar stays suppressed, more people are going to pump money into the economy into the stock market to kind of buffer the fall a bit. And I think a lot of these story stocks, people are going to be in and out like that, or they're going to make their money near term. Again, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, and eventually the music's going to stop, and you're going to be left holding the bag if you're not careful. But that opportunity is still there. Now, I will say, I think what the sweet spot is, if you are interested in playing some of these story stocks, you obviously have to take a certain amount of risk, right? Because you understand these companies, a lot of them don't make money, or they're on the way to making money, but they don't make money yet, or they have high debt, whatever it is. They're not going to be attractive on a fundamental basis. They actually may not be attractive even on a technical basis. But neither necessarily was Open recently. Open moved up from that 91-cent low. Well, this was 2022, so let's be a little bit more realistic. Let's go into the future, right? Sorry. I knew it was lower. So mid-year, 6 months ago, it was at 50 cents. I know some people in the comments are going to get butthurt, but nothing materially with a company is going to change unless they're bought out or something between 6 months ago and today. For it to appreciate from the lows to the highs, 2,000%. Okay? Let's keep it real, right? Yes, they may make more money, they have deals, whatever, but nothing warrants a 2,000% pump unless it's a story stock, unless there's hype, there's social media behind it, there's a short squeeze, there's all of these other mechanics at play, right? And that's what I really want to focus on when I'm saying the idiots are taking over. Crypto plays are going to start getting more heat as well because the dollar is depreciating. People are going to want to funnel their money into crypto, right? These are the things I want you to think about as you approach the market. So again, to summarize this little segment, I believe the idiots are going to be taking over here short term. When I say idiots, I mean the dumber money. And you as a trader, especially if you've been doing this a while, you may have to suspend your belief a little bit and actually maybe keep your risk a little looser. And so conversely, you would lower your size in theory, but keep your risk a little looser where you allow for these big moves, you allow for these big runs. I personally have taken profits too early on certain positions because I just thought they would be done. Or they hit a key resistance area and they retraced and whatever, but there was so much more left on the table, right? And as I would heavily suggest you consider, the best way to play this, you have exposure via equity that you just ride, but you trade with options. So you buy equity of these story stocks and you're patient, and you day trade or you swing trade, so shorter term trade your options. That is what I think about the market in its current condition. That's why I might actually be wrong here. So we'll see what happens in the near future. But that's what I think we're shaping up to look like here in the next 2 months or so. What do you guys think? All right, Hatchet, rewinding the clock a little bit. He says, agree on anybody who can afford a car that wants their own, but young people are struggling. Insurance is expensive. Very true. Insurance for my daughter's car is $200 a month. She and I, for her, would love... Yeah, okay, that's a fair argument. A robotaxi because there's no strange guy driving it. That is actually a really solid counterpoint. I agree. Crypto related and AI infrastructure getting very frothy, but overall market fear and greed was neutral, just broke into greed. Yep. As I mentioned, crypto makes seem frothy. I agree. I hate two things I hate trading: crypto stocks and Chinese stocks. The Chinese stocks, it's because you take on extra risk, and the crypto stocks also you take on some extra risk because your evaluation is based off of another thing. So it's basically like a derivative, like an option. An option gets its value based off another stock, right? So a crypto name is kind of a derivative because it's a derivative how it gets its evaluations from the price of Bitcoin, for example, right? But I myself, someone who hates crypto names, I opened a long in Wolf on my main account, and actually on my seed to tree account, my small account challenge, whatever. And I opened a long on Wolf that at 1150, it's only up about 8%, 9%. But it's to have some exposure to crypto that it could push higher, right? So that's something that I'm considering. Okay, let's look at a few names. Let's highlight a few names. I'm going to get out of here because I'm still not fully healthy and my throat is starting to kill me. So maybe you know what we'll do? I'm going to be live tomorrow. So what I'll do for you guys, I'll highlight one name now and we'll highlight one or two tomorrow. And you can see the names here. These are my recently listed names, so if you want to look ahead, you can. Let's look at PayPal. Toby says, Adam in crypto names. Top is in. Toby, you know me very well. Toby, I'm also been trading semiconductors, as you saw today. Maybe the top is in. And I mentioned over on Twitter, a friend of mine said last week, I 100%, I was in disbelief because he goes, someone told me the market is skibbity. What does that mean? I was like, I need a better sound. I don't know the sound effect here. This one. The market is skibbity? God bless you. This is my 32-year-old friend. He says the market is skibbity. The top may be in. That also goes back to my argument of dumb money, right? More idiots trading the market. If I got people saying the market is skibbity, hey, man, pump your money into all these names I'm already long. Let's go. Anyway, we're going to look at PayPal real quick. So this is PayPal. PayPal, obviously, a lot of you guys know, and I'm sure this has been on a lot of people's radar, and I actually believe it offers an interesting setup right now. Now, full transparency, I'm not necessarily long on PayPal here, but it is in a point where it could be starting to make a move here, or at least condensing here a little bit. So right now, we've made a tiny little base here, going back to basically the start of August, kind of bumping around between the 6643 and basically the 6925 area. Now, today we gapped up a little higher, breaking above that range, but still not really getting a range breakout here. MACD starting to curl up. RSI, you're building a little bit of bull momentum here. Building, again, a bit of a base here with the weekly chart looking very similar. Like we're starting to round out here before getting a little push higher. I want to highlight basically two different downtrends here to the upside. And it looks better on my daily chart. For some reason, it's glitched out on the weekly. But moving up here, I wouldn't really be a confirmed bull on PayPal until we break over this trend line here. Now, you also have this dark blue line on my chart, which is a 200 MA here, which is going to act as a very obvious resistance point on the daily chart, as you could even see here as I zoom out. So I'm personally looking for one of two things. One, to chase the long, and I say chase very carefully, on the 200 MA break and over the downtrend with a confirmed close over the downtrend. In this case, again, judging on a few days here, it would have to be over one of my LOIs here, which are my price targets on the side here. Or establishing a long down here in around the 66, low $66 area where it's served as a decent area of support, putting in a stop around the 65.24 area, which gives you good risk to reward. Because if that breaks, you can establish a new long down here if you really love it. Because basically you had like an inverse head and shoulder here before it attempted a rally. So this general area, the 63.25, should act as a decent support. So getting long down here at 66 with a tight stop here for you're risking about $1 is pretty solid. Now, again, the other scenario is if we push higher here, break the downtrend, backtest the downtrend, that would be the second point in time I'd actually look for a long in PayPal. I would not look for a short on this name. I believe that this name is going to push higher. PayPal obviously has some exposure to crypto as well. So as long as the crypto market's looking pretty frothy, PayPal could also have an added little bull tailwind to how it's set up right now. You're above all your EMAs and your MAs on the daily chart with the exception of the 200 MA. And like I mentioned briefly, the weekly is starting to round out here. I also want to highlight the 200 MA on the weekly, which is coming down. It's above those trend lines, but it's starting to come down quite a bit too. So you want to see if there's any interaction there. Essentially, once this breaks over around the $80 area, you're going to push bullish on a lot of time frames, like quite a lot of time frames here. If you want to use a one key level, 92.62. Key resistance here on the monthly, breaking above that puts you above essentially everything. You would have broken a red SAR on the monthly. It is a solid trade above that 92.62 area on the monthly. So that's for you long-term investors. But looking more short-term, right, I believe the opportunity could present itself in two different ways. Down here at the 66 area with a tight stop, or back testing the downtrend breakout on PayPal. What do you guys think about PayPal? I know it's a little, I don't want to say controversial, but it's a little bit, people feel one way or the other on PayPal specifically. It is something I want to take a peek at. Just, I would prefer the entry down here. I'd prefer getting in down there. I actually might long open today. I actually might buy some shares literally right now as I'm thinking about it. Yeah, why not? I'll buy some shares. I'm going to open a long on open. Where is my open? There it is. Yeah, let's grab a few shares here. That's good. All right, I am now long open equity. I filled at 826. What I like about open here, so I'll highlight. I guess we'll do a quick little, we'll do a second update on open. So here we go, another update on open. We essentially had a tight move up here, a nice rejection, and I said you wanted to hold this 814 area on open. You're now forming basically like a little bit of a pennant here where you're making higher lows and kind of lower highs. You're getting these wick rejections here on the daily candles, but you do have this red SAR coming up as well, and it looks like the MACD is starting to round out here, especially after getting some extra volume on Friday. You're currently above all of your EMAs and MAs on daily, on the daily candle, at least where we are currently as I'm talking about this. And I believe, again, as long as we're holding this 814 area, that you're ready to go for another leg here. I would watch, again, the big trigger here is 1075. So you see, obviously, and for those of you, if you haven't watched the other open videos or anything, this line that I put here at 1075 was here before this big move up, right? So that was there, and this will continue to be there because this is a decent area of resistance here on open. So if we move up here, we get a nice little push. This now has the legs to break this and go even higher. And I will, again, like to highlight, I think the market is very frothy in the sense that there's a lot of dumb money going around. There's a lot of story stocks that are going to continue their stories. I know a lot of people are bullish on open. They're saying how it can do all these great things and stuff. I would like to also reiterate, coming back from the lows of this 50-cent price about 6 months ago, it is now up 2,000% on equity. Nothing really strongly material can change for a company. I mean, anything can happen, right? But to warrant a 2,000% upside appreciation. With that being said, you have other market mechanics like short squeezes and whatnot that help bring the evaluation back up. So it's not a bear thing. It's just a matter of highlighting how much this has appreciated over time. The other thing I really like from open, from a technical standpoint, hard break up, a little bit of a retracement, consolidation, another move up, retracement, consolidation, another move up, retracement. This time you didn't really get consolidation. Another move up, consolidation. This was the one time that it kind of broke the trend, but debatable. You still remain above the 21 EMA and consolidating even further, even tighter. So as long, again, as we're remaining over 814, if you want to extend a little bit extra risk, you give it to the 21 EMA. As long as you're above that, which right now is pretty tight risk. 21 EMA is trading at $7.80, so you're really only risking like 40, 50 cents downside here on open. And watch that 1075. Breaking over that 1075, you're more than likely going to flip your daily MACD. Your RSI has cooled enough where you're still maintaining bull momentum at a 55. You'll break that red SAR. You're going to push here very hard. As long as the bulls don't let this fall here, I have very strong belief that open will push to the upside here. The only other thing that will sink this short term, and this is definitely a risk because it's something I personally believe will happen very soon, is an offering. I think the CEO would be foolish not to drum up more revenue with having an offering. But with that being said, nothing ventured, nothing gained. From a technical basis, hard pushes and retracements, people are going to continue to try to short this thing, especially, again, as I highlighted, how much it's appreciated in time. People have closed out their shorts. People have opened new shorts, continue to get squeezed. I think there's an opportunity for this to go higher. I personally would not give it much higher than this 1947. I know some people think it's going to go to $80. I strongly disagree, or whatever you think. Right now, just to keep you guys grounded, it's a $6 billion market cap. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for it to realistically get to $80. That only puts it at a $60 billion market cap. And I say only, that's very big, but still. But for a company that, unless there are people that are like aggressively shorting this thing continuously and continuously fueling the dragon here, that would be a very far-fetched dream. But with an equity trade here, I'd be very careful with options, but with an equity trade here, it does offer some decent risk to reward here on a story stock. Let's make that abundantly clear. It's a story, it's a meme, so make sure that you understand that risk before you consider open at this evaluation. What do you guys think about open? Toby says, technically, I would want increase in volume on PayPal. Fundamentally, I would want some growth. What did I read the other day? I read something on PayPal that I was like, oh, actually, that's kind of cool. Where's my PayPal? PayPal. There we go. Because I actually ran some fundamental analysis. Hold on, I'm pulling up my notes. Earnings per share. So we're looking at a longer time frame. Has basically grown from 2022 to 2024, which I liked. What else did I write? The PS ratio right now is pretty solid. It's below the 5-year average. So it's good if you're looking at price for sales. And revenue is still up and projected to increase. So there's your growth that you're looking for, Toby. But you're up 5.8% year over year. And we're projecting 6.7% annual growth over the next 3 years. So it's not aggressive growth, but it's not dying. But I would agree it would be nice to have even more growth. But even with that lower single-digit growth at its current evaluation, I think it warrants a higher stock price. To be clear, this is a $67 billion company. How much higher? Obviously debatable, but as long as they're holding growth, I would like to see them do something different, right? If they could differentiate somehow. Strong brand, they're in a lot of businesses. If you're using Uber, you're using PayPal, like they're in a lot of things that people don't even realize. So I think there really is a deeper opportunity with PayPal. It's just a matter of, I want to see something special come out. I want to wait till I'm long the shares, then something special come out. Then I'd feel very happy. All right, guys. We'll take one last peek at the market, but that's going to wrap it up for me today. Crocs coming down a little bit. You're getting a little bit of a sandwich here on the daily chart. Could be a decent buy opportunity here if you miss the run. I might personally add more shares of Crocs today for what it's worth. All right, let's look at the market. We're Nowheresville, USA, currently sitting around 670.57. Nothing to write home there. Q's drifting a little lower. IWM, so we're seeing a little bit of a divergence here between the Qs and IWM. IWM finding some strength. Volatility has come down, which is good, but you're still north at 1653, so it's still signaling potentially higher volatility on the day. Wow. That upgrade did not work for NVIDIA, and I guess, guys, we had it ended up being a great thing. Again, it could still move all the way up as long as it's got to remain north of this 186.21, which has basically failed the retest twice, so probably won't. But hey, I guess when we were having all those issues at the beginning of the stream with the market, worked out, and I ended up netting a better profit. So sometimes we have happy mistakes in the stock market, and I'm not mad about it. Microsoft near the highs of the day. Apple, funky little cup and handle kind of shape here. This today might be the day. Apple might break that flat top today. So this is what I was, so Hatchet, I'm calling you out again if you're still watching. This is exactly what I'm talking about, where I'm saying, like, you want a good day, intraday setup to confirm a stronger daily break, right? You got a little cup here, you got a little bit of a handle, you're squeezing all your EMAs and MAs here. It sucks because I'm not going to trade today, but I would consider taking calls on Apple. You know what? I could open a swing. That way, if I don't close it, at least I'm not going to be, I would lower my risk if I opened a swing. Buy more time. I'm going to think about that. Watch the 200 MA here very close on Apple. Amazon, nothing going on there. Meta had a little bit of a recovery. Keep an eye on that. All right, looking pretty quiet, honestly. Looking pretty quiet. All right, guys. That's going to wrap it up. I'm going to be live tomorrow, so if you enjoyed the show today, make sure you pop on by. Same time tomorrow, 9:15 a.m. And I'll do one more stream, more than likely this week, as well later in the week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the stream, and don't forget, some might say you need an angle or an edge to trade. Well, I like to look at things from a different angle, and that's always what we get right here on the Atomcash angle. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. Please trade smart. Please be very careful if you're trading options today, specifically due to the issues we were talking at the beginning of the stream. And remember, precision beats prediction every damn time. I will see you tomorrow at 9:15 a.m.
The time has passed, and that's a wrap. You're on with the